Here you go. This is gonna make you feel so good.
There's another girl.
Right.
Still.
Oh, still what?
Well, he does live here.
Yeah, well, so do we.
And he does pay a third
But
of
if I took a puppy, he'd have to cancel the debt.
Aw, you've got a soft spot, too, right here.
What do you mean?
We can't keep it.
Why not?
Hello, dear friends. Today we're taking a trip down memory lane, going back to those wonderful years of the 70s and 80s when television gave us comedies that truly made us laugh from the heart. We're talking about Three's Company, that show that became such a massive hit, and that so many of us still remember fondly, laughing just thinking about those hilarious moments we watched in our living rooms. But get ready, because today you're going to discover backstage stories and secrets that you probably never heard before, those fascinating tidbits that make us appreciate this unforgettable series even more. Before we continue, don't forget to subscribe to our channel and hit that notification bell so you won't miss any of our videos about the shows and programs that marked our lives. Now let's dive into this fascinating story. Did you know that Three's Company almost never made it to air? That's right, my friends. ABC Network was extremely concerned about the show's concept because back in those days, showing two men and one woman sharing the same apartment was considered very daring and controversial. The executives were scared of how conservative American audiences would react. The solution they found was brilliant. They made John Ritter's character, Jack Tripper, pretend to be gay so that the landlord would accept the living arrangement. At the time, this was a very clever move because it made the premise acceptable to more traditional viewers, although today we can see it was a way of dealing with prejudice using other prejudices. But what many people don't know is that Three's Company was actually an adaptation of a British series called Man About the House. The Americans bought the rights and adapted the format for their audience. And here's something interesting. While the original British series had only 39 episodes, the American version was such a huge success that it lasted 8 seasons with 172 episodes. This shows how the chemistry between the actors and the way they adapted the humor made all the difference. Speaking of chemistry between actors, here's a backstage secret that will surprise you. Suzanne Somers, who played the adorable and somewhat naive Chrissy Snow, had a serious conflict with the production that almost destroyed her career. At the height of the show's success, she asked for a significant salary increase, wanting to earn the same as John Ritter. At that time, she was making $30,000 per episode, while John was earning $150,000. The production not only denied her request, but practically kicked her off the show. In the last scenes where she appears, Suzanne wasn't even in the same studio as the other actors. Her scenes were filmed separately and edited to make it look like she was there. It was a very sad situation that deeply affected the actress. She was practically unable to work in television for many years after that, being seen as a difficult actress to work with, when in reality she was just fighting for equal pay, something we now see as completely fair. And there's more about the tense backstage atmosphere. Do you remember when Joyce DeWitt, who played Janet Wood, simply disappeared from the media after Three's Company ended? Few people know that she and Suzanne Somers didn't speak to each other for over 30 years because of all that mess surrounding Suzanne's departure. Joyce felt betrayed because she thought Suzanne had put her personal interests above their friendship and the good of the show. Fortunately, decades later, in 2012, the two reconciled and are now friends again. They gave interviews together talking about how important it was to forgive and leave the past behind. Now let's talk about John Ritter, the heart of the series. That man was a born comedian with perfect comic timing and an incredible physical ability for humor. But did you know he was the son of Tex Ritter, a famous country music singer and movie star from the 40s? John grew up in Hollywood, but he had to prove his own talent, and my goodness how he proved it. The way he did those falls, those facial expressions, everything seemed natural. But it was actually the result of a lot of study and dedication. John studied at drama school and had training in classical theatre before dedicating himself to comedy. Unfortunately, John left us far too soon in 2003, at only 54 years old, victim of an aortic dissection. It was an enormous loss to the entertainment world. Another curious detail that few people know, the apartment where the series took place was number 201, but in the first seasons, It was identified as Apartment A. They changed this to avoid confusion with real addresses in Santa Monica, where the story supposedly took place. And the Regal Beagle, that bar they frequented, where Jack worked as a bartender in some episodes. That set became so iconic it was almost a character in the series itself. People wanted to visit a bar like that in real life, and this shows how the series created a world that audiences wanted to inhabit. There's a very funny story about the tapings. Since the series was filmed in front of a live studio audience, sometimes the actors would laugh so hard during scenes that they couldn't finish filming. There were episodes that took hours longer to complete because John Ritter would do some improvisation that caught everyone by surprise and nobody could hold back their laughter. The production kept those genuine laughs whenever possible because they made everything more authentic and contagious. Do you remember Mr. Roper and then Mr. Furley? Norman Fell and Audra Lindley, who played the Ropers, left the series to star in their own spin-off called The Ropers, but the show didn't work out and was cancelled after only 2 seasons. Their contract with Three's Company had a clause saying they could only return if the spin-off failed, and Three's Company was still on the air. But when they wanted to come back, the production had already hired Don Knotts to play Mr. Furley and didn't want to let him go. It was a complicated situation that left Norman and Audra very upset, especially because Don Knotts was earning much more money than they had earned. And speaking of Don Knotts, that man was an American comedy legend. Before Three's Company, he was already famous for his role as Barney Fife on The Andy Griffith Show, for which he won 5 Emmy Awards. When he joined Three's Company, he brought with him a whole wealth of experience and credibility that elevated the show even further. Her curiosity about the theme song that opened the series. It was called Come and Knock on Our Door and was composed especially for the show. That catchy melody stuck in everyone's head and everybody hummed along. But what many don't know is that the lyrics changed throughout the seasons, reflecting changes in the cast. When Suzanne Somers left and Jenna Lee Harrison came in as Cindy Snow and later Priscilla Barnes as Terry Alden, the song was adapted accordingly. Let's also talk about how the series influenced pop culture and paved the way for other comedies. Three's Company showed that it was possible to make intelligent humor based on misunderstandings and embarrassing situations without needing to be vulgar or offensive. Of course, by today's standards, some jokes might seem outdated, but at the time, it was an innovative comedy that pushed the boundaries of what was acceptable on television without crossing the line of good taste. One thing that's still impressive today is how the series managed to extract humor from simple, everyday situations. It didn't need special effects, didn't need elaborate jokes. You just had to put those 3 characters in a situation and let the chemistry between the actors do the rest. This is something that's been somewhat lost in modern television, where often there's dependence on technological resources instead of good scripts and performances. Here's something else you might not know. The show's success spawned several international adaptations in countries around the world. Each culture put its own spin on the format, but the basic premise of the comedy of errors and misunderstandings remained universal. The show proved that good comedy transcends cultural boundaries. Another fascinating backstage tidbit involves the apartment set itself. It was actually one of the most expensive sitcom sets of its time because it was built as a complete, functional apartment with real appliances and running water. This allowed for more realistic scenes and gave the actors actual props to work with, making their performances more natural and believable. The physical comedy that John Ritter brought to the show was truly remarkable and often underappreciated. He would practice those pratfalls and stumbles for hours to make sure they looked spontaneous while being completely safe. He once said in an interview that he studied the great physical comedians like Buster Keaton and Charlie Chaplin to perfect his technique. That dedication to the craft is something that really set Three's Company apart from other sitcoms of its era. One thing that younger generations might not understand is how Three's Company was appointment television. There was no DVR, no streaming, no watching it on demand. When that show came on Tuesday nights at 9 o'clock, you had to be there in front of your TV set or you'd miss it. That created a shared cultural experience where the next day at work or school, everyone would be talking about what happened on last night's episode. It brought people together in a way that's rare in today's fragmented media landscape. The show also launched several successful spin-offs beyond the Ropers. There was Three's a Crowd, which followed Jack Tripper after he moved in with his girlfriend Vicky Bradford, though it only lasted one season. The fact that they even attempted spin-offs shows how much the network believed in the property and wanted to keep that magic going. So, my dear friends, I hope you enjoyed learning about these backstage stories and curiosities about Three's Company. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to give it a thumbs up. Share it with friends who also watch the series, and most importantly, subscribe to our channel so you won't miss our upcoming videos where we'll continue remembering these television gems that were part of our lives. Leave in the comments what your favorite memories of Three's Company are and what other classic shows you'd like us to cover here. A big hug and see you in the next video.